We're heading into the final week of the season, week 17. The Giants are 5-10, and they're still alive to win the division. Yes, the NFC East did not disappoint. It seemed like one of these teams was maybe gonna make it so that the division winner had a representative record. Nope. In fact, the Giants would be the first team to ever have as bad as a 6-10 record to win the division. We've seen the Seahawks win the division at 7-9 and actually win a playoff game. That was the Marshawn Lynch kind of beast mode performance against the defending champion Saints. And we've also seen a 7-8-1 Carolina Panther team, win the division and actually win a game as well. If the Giants make the playoffs, I do not see them winning. 4 weeks ago, I thought they had a chance, but the way they're playing now, absolutely not. As far as the Giant-Raven game, there's not much for me to really discuss. They got completely annihilated from the beginning of the game. And against the Ravens, it may have made sense to not defer. So most teams you see defer to receive the ball to start the second half. That seems to be a thing across the league. But against the Ravens, it's so key to be not down against them more than any team in the league. And it wouldn't have made a difference. Just kind of a thought I had originally. But once the Giants went down, there was no shot. Daniel Jones looked more healthy than he had. Nowhere near 100%. He's still not really running the ball. And that was such a big part of the Giants' success, was the ability for him to, on those read options, is he going to keep it with Gallman? Is he going to kind of fake the defense out? We saw some really big runs, and it was a big part of the success, like I said. So he doesn't have that in his game, but it does look like he's healthier than he's been in the last few weeks. And it seems like heading into this final game against the Cowboys, he should be relatively healthy, but again, not, optimal by any means. So the offense didn't do anything. The defense got just totally, I don't even know what the right word would be. It was embarrassing. And the only reason why they gave up 27 points was because the offense was so bad. And this defense, it's long, methodical drives against them. So don't be fooled by the fact that the Giants aren't giving up like a crazy, crazy amount of points. Extremely misleading. This defense is not playing well. They're not getting any pass rush. And the Giants just aren't a very talented team. That is just the fact of the matter. I think coaching and, Patrick Graham on the defensive side were doing a really good job of kind of not exposing a lot of deficiencies. And now the Giants are playing pretty good teams. Ravens definitely being a very good team. And they're being completely exposed. So now the Giants are 5-10, miraculously alive. It doesn't make any sense. We'll never see it again. And what's even crazier is that the Giants, if they lose, they could pick as high as third in the NFL draft. That won't happen. That's a best case scenario. I think you're looking at, if the Giants lose, I think they're going to be more in that kind of 5 or 6 to let's just say 5-9 range. I think you're looking at it more in that element. But it just goes to show you that losing does have some value here. I will be rooting for them to win. So the scenario is, if the Giants beat the Cowboys, then it will come down to Sunday Night Football, Washington versus Philly. If Washington wins, they win the division. If Washington loses, the winner of Giants-Cowboys wins the division. So the results in order for the Giants to win the division are not far-fetched at all. They really could both happen. I don't think that they will. I tend to think that either the Cowboys will beat the Giants or Washington will beat Philly. But as I kind of explained last week, the Giants got the help they needed. The Giants were not going to beat the Ravens, but they got the help. They got Carolina to beat Washington with Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback for Washington, who has since been released. What a fall from grace. The first-round pick last year, now gone. He was horrible. Sounds like Alex Smith will be back, and they need him back. What a crazy thing to say now after Alex Smith almost lost his life, to be honest. That not only did they kind of want him back, they need Alex Smith back in order to win this game. But also Dallas beat Philly. If either of those two results did not happen that way, the Giants would have been eliminated. So they got the help they needed, and we'll see if they can do themselves any favors and get the help they need on Sunday night. What a weird sight for me to be rooting for the Eagles, who we never beat them. It's always something really bad. To me, they're my most hated team. The Cowboys are a close second, but the Eagles are there for me. And the Giants, I'm going to be rooting for the Eagles actually regardless, because if the Giants do lose, I still want to jump them for the draft spot, and to a lesser degree to get last in the division for an easier schedule. Again, that's not really a big deal. It's more so just for the draft pick. But the worst case scenario would be the Giants win and then Washington wins. So then you go 6-7, the Giants go 6-10, still don't make the playoffs, get the worst draft pick, and then any chance of Dave Gettleman being fired, which maybe there isn't one. I think that he should be. I think if the Giants lose and lose badly to Dallas, I think his job should very much be on the line. But that would not, that would upset me. And I'm a little fearful of that the Giants win. You're waiting hours for the Sunday night game only to see Washington, barely win that division. With that also being said, I tend to have more faith in Philly to win their game against Washington than the Giants to beat the Cowboys. So my prediction, and I don't feel strongly about it, here's what I'll say. I think the Giants, out of the three teams, Giants, Cowboys, and Washington, I think the Giants have the least chance. And that's not really going on too much of a limb, but I think that the Cowboys, if you're a Cowboy fan, I think you have to be feeling very good about things. You're on a 3-game winning streak. The offense is clicking. And I think they got a decent shot to do this. I really think that the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts, who made some mistakes against Dallas, it's not Carson Wentz. I think Philly's going to be playing hard. You have to see who's in and who's out, because, if someone's injured on Philly, there's a good chance that they're not going to push it. But I think that with all these kind of divisional games in the last week, it's going to lead to some competitive football and some teams playing spoiler. And I think Philly is definitely up for that. So I had been saying that the Cowboys were going to be dangerous because they had a very easy schedule, and that finally came to fruition. But it's funny, the Cowboys were 3-9 and going into week 15. So at that point they had won. So they were 4-9. They had come off a win against the Bengals. And at that point the scenario was they needed to win 3 straight, and they needed Washington to lose 3 straight. That so far has the 2 Cowboys wins since that happened and 2 Washington losses. And Washington hasn't even played Dallas. So that's what makes it even more crazy. Like, Dallas' percentage chance to make the playoffs was like 2%. It was nothing. And now they have a legitimate shot to do it. So it just shows you week to week, everything changes. And that's just one of many, many crazy scenarios we're going to get into for week 17. And I think the NFL has to be very happy at the way that things played out, because there were a lot of teams that could have clinched that didn't. Washington was a win away from clinching the NFC East and putting this to rest. But of course, this division was going to have to come down to the very last game of the season. Washington Philly gets flexed to Sunday night. It's weird that Giants Cowboys is 1 o'clock. I kind of figured that they would flex that to 4:25. It's funny. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman will be doing Giants Cowboys, but this will be a 1 p.m. start. And, the Giants really tend to only win like 1 p.m. starts. I mean, even technically Seattle, it was 4 o'clock Eastern, but it was 1 o'clock in Seattle. So Giants are not good in primetime situations. So I do think that this might actually help them. But all kidding aside, I cannot wait to see what happens in the AFC and the NFC. There's just so much going. And let's bring the Jets into this, actually. And, Jets and playoffs, you wouldn't kind of think that those two things would be relevant, but I'm going to tie it all together. So the Jets win again against Cleveland. So they are locked into the 2 spot for the draft. They will not be getting Trevor Lawrence. I'm pretty surprised that it didn't even come down to week 17. It's pretty remarkable that they won the Ram game and then they beat a receiver-depleted Cleveland team, but it was beyond that. That wasn't even the issue. I feel like the Jets' offense was not great by any means, but it even did better than I would have expected. So the Jets win again. So now what do? Do they stick with Darnold and pick a non-quarterback at 2? Or is Darnold gone and they go with maybe Sewell, try to really further bolster the offensive line? And what happens in Week 17? If the Jets beat the Patriots, which honestly, I think that they very, very easily could, it can't save Adam Gase's job, could it? And again, normally I would say he's absolutely gone. But with this Jets ownership and the hierarchy and the weird structure, who knows? So a lot of question marks with the Jets. We'll get more into that in the offseason, but we do know now that they are picking second, and Trevor Lawrence, in all likelihood, will be going to the Jaguars at number 1. But with the Jets, what they did do, they may have kept the Rams and the Browns out of the playoffs. We don't know yet, but it's definitely possible that they did. The Rams, all they had to do was beat the Jets, and they would have made it to the playoffs. And all they needed was an Arizona Cardinal win this past weekend, home against a banged-up San Francisco 49er team. C.J. Beathard was the starting quarterback, who, in all honesty, is really not much worse at all than Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Mullins. Beathard did a decent job, and they won. And it's funny, you're thinking to yourself, wait, why would the Rams have needed Arizona to win? The reason that is because the only way the Rams wouldn't get in is in a 3-way tiebreak between Chicago and Arizona. The Rams beat the Bears. So under that scenario, the Rams would get in. So the Rams against Arizona this week with no Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff, obviously, not a big Jared Goff fan, but it's a big injury. They're going with a no-name, John Wolford, who's never attempted a snap in the NFL, out of Wake Forest, bit of a journeyman type. He's been the Rams' backup. The Rams just brought in Blake Bortles, who was the backup to Goff last season. And Arizona's not looking great themselves. Kyler Murray, to me, he's shown flashes, but he's not the best passer. But he's dynamic, of course. So the Rams, they now, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they can still get in if the Bears lose to the Packers. So, and then for Arizona, it's a must-win. If Arizona loses to the Rams, they are eliminated. But it is a win-in game, but the Rams do have some leeway. And to be honest with you, because the Packers, it's kind of like a puzzle. It's interesting how this whole thing works. The Packers, they need to win in order to get that big 1 seed. Getting the 1 seed this year is very important. There is no, 1 and 2 seed buys. Only 1. So I have to think, again, the game's in Soldier Field. It's in Chicago. And the Bears are playing very good football. But I have to say, I like the Packers to win that game. And therefore, now these games are at the same time. Green Bay, Chicago is at the same time as Arizona against the Rams. And I have to say, I think that I think the Rams are going to get in. Win or lose. If they win, they're automatically in. If they lose, but the Bears lose as well, they're in. So I think if you're a Ram fan, I think even with Wolford, even though there's a decent chance you might lose that game, I think they find their way to get in. And what'll be interesting to see is now that Arizona is facing a Goffless Ram team, that could be just what they need to get in. So really bad news for the Jared Goff news is really bad for the Bears because a Cardinal loss gets Chicago in. So there's a lot of, Chicago momentum and a lot of obviously negative talk on Arizona and the Rams. But my prediction is that Arizona and the Rams both get in. Arizona will beat the Rams and Chicago will lose to Green Bay. So if that scenario occurs, then those teams would be the 6th and 7th seeds. and Green Bay would hold on to that one spot. Now, Green Bay's competition is New Orleans and Seattle. In a three-way tie between Green Bay, New Orleans, and Seattle, New Orleans would get the one spot. So Green Bay would have to lose to Chicago, which can happen. It absolutely can happen. New Orleans would have to beat Carolina in Carolina. And I will say, Matt Rule's Panthers squad, they're one of those teams that's playing very competitively down the stretch. So, New Orleans, they'll be definitely giving it their all. It's a big game for them. But Carolina, they're not going to be easy, even without McCaffrey. And I'm not a huge Teddy Bridgewater fan, but I like what Rule's doing over there. And then Seattle has a slim hope as well. In order for Seattle to get in, they would need it to be just a tie with them and Green Bay. So they would need Green Bay to lose, and they would also need New Orleans to lose. So their chances are pretty slim, not impossible. They play San Francisco, who just won last week. So all those teams play at the same time. They'll all, certainly have a lot to play for. I would expect to see all the starters in that game. In Week 17, we'll get into this, but there's a lot of question as to whether eliminated teams or teams that have clinched a playoff berth, whether they might sit some of their guys. In that situation, I think they'll all play. Another thing to look at is the Bucs play the Falcons at 1, and the Bucs already, they know they cannot win the division. They know they clinched a berth, but I think that they will be playing hard because of the fact that you want to get that 5 seed so you can play the NFC East winner. And I think the Bucs will get there anyway, because again, the only way they couldn't is if the Bucs lose and the Rams were to beat the Cardinals. The Rams would be the ones to get the 5 seed because they beat the Bucs on Monday night a few weeks back. But logic is telling me that the Bucs will face the NFC East winner. And I think as of now, if you ask Washington, Cowboys, or Giants, you'd prefer to play the Rams. Not that the Bucs aren't beatable, but obviously Brady's had some amazing moments in the playoffs. They're definitely hitting their stride a bit against weak opponents. But we'll see. They play a Falcon team who cannot find a way to win. Again, this week they really should have beaten the Chiefs. They weren't able to get it done. And so, that will be something. But I think, like I said, even if the Bucs lose, the Rams are going to have a tough time in that game without Goff. So chances are the Bucs will be the 5 seed, and just a lot going on there. But let's go to the AFC. Way more craziness there. The one thing that's different is you have the 1 seed locked up. Like I said, Kansas City got their win, so they will be sitting their guys against the Chargers this week. I would not expect to see a whole lot of Mahomes, a whole lot of Tyreek Hill, who's had a hamstring injury. It'd be smart for them to sit Kelsey, all their main guys. If they play, it won't be much. And then they'll have a week to rest up. So the Chiefs, it hasn't been pretty, but they are definitely the favorites. Defending champs, Pat Mahomes, everything. They are definitely looking good, but they're not unstoppable either. But with their quarterback, you have to like their chances. So let's start from top to bottom. Bills and Steelers are going to be vying for the number 2 spot. Now, like I said, there is no bye for the 2 seed anymore. So it doesn't mean quite as much. It should mean a little bit, though. Just for an example, Buffalo beat Pittsburgh a few weeks back in Buffalo. And right now, they're tied, but because of that Buffalo win, they have the tiebreaker. So it'll be interesting to see how Buffalo and Pittsburgh plays those games. And who they play against are teams that are fighting for their playoff lives. So Buffalo, you get the sense that they will be playing their starters. That's just kind of the feel that you get with them, is that they aren't really going to rest anyone. And that's going to lead to a very interesting game between Miami and Buffalo. Pittsburgh, Cleveland is favored by about a touchdown. And I haven't read it anywhere, but that's telling me that Pittsburgh, I guess, is going to be sitting their guys, because there's no way that Cleveland will be favored by 7 under normal circumstances. There's just no way. So that could change the whole environment. And again, Pittsburgh and Cleveland are rivals. So Pittsburgh, they definitely want to win that game. But I guess it would also make sense for them to sit Roethlisberger. And so that's leaving me unsure as to what will happen. But again, Cleveland being that heavy of a favorite does tell me that Pittsburgh may not be starting their guys. Buffalo, I think, will be. But if there is someone who is like one of those things where if it were a playoff game, you'd play them, maybe in this situation, they kind of are a little cautious. But the AFC is crazy. You might have an 11-5 Colt team miss the playoffs. And then here it is, the Giants at 6-10 might make it. It doesn't make sense. I guess it's because it's 2020. And like I've said previously, they added a playoff team. There's 7 teams that make it in the AFC. And even still, an 11-5 team might not qualify. But I do think that the Colts will get in. That's my prediction. They are the ones that need help. The other teams win and in. So you have, like I said, the Chiefs at 1, Bills and Steelers going for 2 or 3. The AFC South winner, Titans or Colts, will be the 4. And then it's the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, and then the loser of the AFC South, the Titans and Colts. So the Colts actually have the easiest matchup. They're home against Jacksonville. They will win that game. There's no question they will win that game. And that's what makes this fascinating. Will they get the help they need? Let's go through this. At the same time, so at 4:25, the Colts will be playing as well as the Titans. The Titans are playing the Texans in Houston. I think the Titans are going to win this game. Houston's offense is dangerous with Deshaun Watson, but I just saw what their defense did against the Bengals this week, and I know J.J. Watt just had a fiery press conference, and I'm sure that they will come back and play a little bit harder, a little better, but that Titan offense is way too much to handle. So while maybe that game could be close, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think that you will see the Titans win the division because they do have the tiebreaker over the Colts. So let's just say the Titans win the division. Then they'll be hosting a playoff game come Wild Card weekend. The Ravens, they play the Bengals. I like them to win that game for sure. I know the Bengals have been playing well lately, but I just saw what the Ravens did to my Giants, and Lamar Jackson's locked in. Very locked in. And with the great thing about these divisional games is that you're going to get each team's best. So I don't want to just say, don't even watch, it's over, but I feel very strongly about the Ravens to win. Therefore, they will be in. And these are the ones, like I said before, these are the interesting games where I think the Colts might sneak in. It's that Bill-Dolphin game and the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game. And the caveat being, if Pittsburgh's just going to bench their guys, obviously that helps Cleveland. But you know what? I'm going to take it a step further anyway. Even if they do, can Cleveland get it done? They just lost to the Jets. They've looked good at times. Their record is good, but this team has not made the playoffs since 2002. It's a big hump to get over. Will they do it? So I think it comes down to, I think Indy will get their win, but can they get the help? And Cleveland and Miami are the ones that are most susceptible. Miami playing a very strong Buffalo team in Buffalo. It'll be cold, of course. Can Miami go up to Buffalo and win? If Ryan Fitzpatrick was their quarterback, I like their chances better than if it's Tua. And it sounds like Tua is going to get the start. He may get a quick hook, but that worries me. It does. I think you see how this offense operates with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it's just night and day difference. I'm not saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a Hall of Fame quarterback by any means. He makes his mistakes. He has definitely had a tendency. We saw it against the Bills when he was the Jet quarterback, when they had a win-and-in scenario. That was maybe one of his worst games of that season. He made some critical mistakes. And I know he's capable of that, but I do think he gives them a better chance to win than Tua. So that's where I'll be very glued into, is what is going to happen in those 1 o'clock games in Buffalo and in Cleveland, because I think one of those teams will lose, and I think the Colts will get in. Now, if the Dolphins win, they are assured of being the 5 seed, and they will be playing the Titans in all likelihood, or the Colts if the Titans slip up. So I think the NFL got what they wanted this week with just basically you're looking at more than half of the games having meaning. Now, there's some games that have none. For example, Lions versus the Vikings, Jets versus the Patriots. The AFC West games don't have any meaning, but just maybe a little under, maybe like 70, about 2/3 of the games have great meaning across the league. So this is kind of what you live for as a football fan, is end of the season and just so many different scenarios. It's going to be fun. I love the way that the NFL does it, where they stagger these games, and the ones that have meaning towards each other, they play them at the same time. So that's why when they flexed Washington and Philly to Sunday night, it made sense, because the Cowboy-Giant winner, whoever wins that game, it doesn't affect Washington. Washington needs to win to get in. So, and it's smart by them too, because the Cowboy fan base is huge, really, really huge, and the Giant fan base is very big too. So you're going to get a lot of eyes on this Washington-Philly game. Maybe it doesn't appeal to the masses, obviously. Washington's a 6-9 team, not the most exciting team, certainly offensively. On offense, they're not, but just a smart job by them. And then, you have New Orleans, Green Bay, and Seattle playing at the same time. You have Chicago, Arizona, and the Rams playing at the same time, all in that, late afternoon window. And then at 1, you have, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland, Miami, Baltimore, all at the same time. They decided to play the AFC South teams later on. So it's just a lot of fun. And with that additional playoff team this year and moving forward, I think that kind of added to it as well. And so I'm excited. And just from a Giant angle, I'm not feeling great about them. They're really trending downward, but this is a game that they should be able to compete in. They have played well within the division. Let's, think about it. They're 3-2, and the games they lost were heartbreakers at Dallas and at Philly. They should have won both of those games without a doubt. So we know that they can compete in these divisional games, but is this really bad play lately indicative of what's to come? Can they break out of this? This will be big for Joe Judge. It will be. I like the guy, but there's no excuses. If they get blown out again and lose 4 in really embarrassing fashion, that's just not good. And I think it takes away from the good feel that there was this season. So if they do lose this game, the good thing is you're looking at a very likely good draft pick. That's the one good thing here. And maybe you're looking at Dave Gettleman getting fired. So there is a bit of a win-win outlook, I think. Again, the worst thing that could happen is the Giants win and then Washington wins. And so the Giants don't make the playoffs, don't get the great draft pick, and maybe don't get those potential firings. But I'm going to be going into this really rooting hard for my team. The Giants have lost 7 straight to the Cowboys. They got to end it. They were able to end the Eagle streak. I didn't think they would, but they did it. They have to do it here again. The last time the Giants beat the Cowboys was when they beat them twice in 2016. And that was against a really good Cowboy team. That was the Cowboy team, with Dak as a rookie, and Dallas won the division. But the Giants played 2 really good games against them. And in the last 3 seasons, then the first game this year, the Giants have either gotten killed against Dallas or have found ways to lose. They have to end that now. Now is the time. This is, there's a lot that is going to be learned from this game. Either, like I said, with Joe Judge, with Daniel Jones, Jason Garrett's a big storyline. I think his job security is not great. Now here he is going up against his former team that he coached for about a decade. So I think you have to be very interested in what you're going to see in this team in Week 17 at home. Granted, there's no fans, but they have to come out and play well. I don't care that Daniel Jones is hurt. There's no excuse for them to not give it their all and to be in this game. Dallas's defense is nothing to write home about. Their offense is looking good. They have a lot of weapons. I am concerned about that, but Andy Dalton certainly is not the most mobile. And the Giants have been facing some faster quarterbacks lately that have given them trouble. So I'm hoping that as him being more of a stationary quarterback, that can help this defense a bit. But it'll be strength versus strength in the Giant defense versus the Cowboy offense, and weakness versus weakness with the Giant offense versus the Cowboy defense. And that's relative to to each team. Like, the Giant defense, I think we're finding is more middling than like one of the better ones in the league. But obviously it's better than the Giant offense. So we'll see what happens. I hope to be talking after Sunday Night Football, reveling in an Eagle win, which leads to a Giant divisional championship and leading to a preview of what would likely be Tom Brady versus the Giants in the playoffs once again. I can't wait to see what happens, and I'll talk to you next week.